On October 21, 2013, the National Petroleum Agency auctioned the Libra field, the largest oil reserve in Brazil. The Brazilian oil company Petrobras formed a consortium with CNPC and CNOOC from China, Royal Dutch Shale from Netherlands, and Total Oil from France. Only one bid was placed, and the consortium won the auction. In the Libra fields lays 12 billion barrels of oil, which could generate profit up to $1 trillion in 20 years. This could also place Brazil as one of the world's largest oil producers. In 2010, Dilma Rousseff, then presidential candidate, won a good share of votes, but claiming that her opponent, José Serra, had intentions to privatize the Brazilian oil. She then considered the privatization inadmissible, since the oil laying in the pre-salt layer of the ocean was a wealth to be used exclusively in favor of the Brazilian people.
O principal assessor para a área energética de petróleo do candidato levantou, e ele não respondeu, que ele é a favor da privatização do pré-sal, ou seja, a exploração do pré-sal ser feita por quem? Pelas empresas privadas internacionais. E isso foi uma afirmação feita, e é grave, porque o pré-sal é uma das riquezas mais importantes do país. Defender a privatização do pré-sal significa tirar dinheiro do país para investir em educação de qualidade, em ciência e tecnologia, meio ambiente, investir em cultura, em saúde e fazer uma política em que o Brasil tem passaporte para o futuro.
Only 3 years later, Dilma Rousseff has changed her position, and critics say she will not only allow the private companies to exploit oil, but she does it in a very unfavorable way for the Brazilian people. The winning consortium offered to the Brazilian government 41.65% of total production, which was the minimum amount required. On average, countries keep 80% of profits in areas such as Libra. This is because the oil has been already found and even calculated, so the investment presents a greatly reduced risk. This is Francisco Soriano, a long-time engineer at Petrobras, now director of the Oil Workers Union of Rio.
A Petrobras cobraria, quer dizer, a União cobraria, e a Petrobras pagaria também pelo que ela arrematasse nesse aí, cerca de 15 bilhões de reais, que não é para educação, que não é para saúde nem transporte, não. Esses 15 bilhões é para pagar dívida, é para gerar superávit primário.
The winning company must also pay $8 billion bonus, which represents only 0.01% of the potential richness of the Libra field. Besides the bonus, the company that will be responsible for operating the field ought to pay exploitation rights, equivalent to 15% of the total amount of barrels extracted. This fee shall be divided between the federal government, states, and municipalities. The 5% that remains to the federal government shall be invested in the international stock market. The profit from this investment, if any, will be allocated to education and health. The exploitation rights, however, will be returned to the winning consortium as a compensation for the total cost of operation over the estimated 20 years of exploration.
Você sabia que, na verdade, os royalties do petróleo, que são 10%, eles recebem de volta? Você não vai ver nenhuma firma estrangeira ou nacional que está aí concorrendo no petróleo falar mal dos royalties, porque eles vão desembolsar isso em dinheiro, em moeda, e vão receber de volta em petróleo, que é a melhor moeda do mundo. Então isso daí é inacreditável.
Approximately 50% of Brazilian oil will remain in the hands of the group of companies that presented the only bid at the auction. It can be exported as raw oil and shipped directly from the platforms without going through custom control. According to Soriano, China, a country that is part of the consortium with two of its national oil companies, opened in Brazil a direct border exempted from tax, exploiting the Brazilian raw reserves in a way not seen since the colonial times.
Isso ainda é mais grave. Sabe por quê? Porque quando você tem uma empresa estatal de outro país, significa a matriz e nós sermos a colônia.
If production does not exceed 4,000 barrels per day and the price per barrel is less than $60, then the Brazilian government is committed to relinquish its 26.9% share of the profit. The federal justice received 25 judiciary actions challenging the auction, rejected 18 of them, claiming that there were no illegalities in the process. The auction can still be cancelled if judges find fraud or irregularities. 1,000 soldiers reinforced security outside the hotel that hosts the event. Protesters took the street to show the people's dissatisfaction with the auction, maybe also moved by the allegations of Edward Snowden, who announced that Petrobras was repeatedly spied by US intelligence. Many now believe that this privileged information could have compromised and undermined the transparency and fairness of the auction.
Você mostra sua coragem quando você diz que o leilão está suspenso, porque está provado, através de uma edição nacional para 200 milhões de brasileiros. Os Estados Unidos espionaram e sabem tudo do campo de Libra. Eles sabem que se a Petrobras vai dar lance, quanto vai ser o lance. Eles conhecem a sísmica melhor do que a Petrobras.
Despite being the seventh largest economy in the world, according to the International Monetary Fund, at the United Nations Human Development Index, Brazil occupies a bitter 85th place.
Por exemplo, esse é o país de pior distribuição de renda do mundo. Se o petróleo tivesse sob o controle dos trabalhadores, do povo brasileiro, não vai ser para dar lucros e mais lucros aos senhores empresários, que não pensam em termos populares.
Soriano believes that the Brazilian government thinks the short term and is content with the 15 billion that will be used to close the year 2013 with a positive balance, covering the interest cost related to the Brazilian debt, a swing that favors only the international financial capital. If the government will think long term, he continues, the Brazilian people could benefit directly from approximately $1 trillion in 20 years.
Agora, o que fazer? É nós explorarmos essa riqueza fantástica que nós temos, que é a opressão.
The protests in the street of Rio today were relatively small. There is discontent with the government, even before the massive protests erupted in the summer. It has been widely reported how President Rousseff jumped 9 points in popularity polls by openly criticizing US spying programs, going from 49% in July to 58% in September, according to MDA Consultors, a local polling firm. For now, it appears she is not taking the same approach towards corporate power, presenting a special report by Nerita Oeiras. This is Oscar Leon.